So in our previous lecture, we have started discussing about the PID controller, right? We have started discussing about the PID controller. This is the simplest form of block diagram of PID controller. In fact, this is here we can have any kind of controller, right? Just before the plant. That is the standard way of having the controller. The controller is going to change the parameters of the plant. Okay, and this is the quite more detailed version of the PID controller. It explains almost everything that everything about the basics of the PID controller, right? There are three parameters, three components: derivative, proportional, integral. Actually, proportional, integral, and derivative. Three components are there, and for these three components, there are three constants. There are three constants for the PID controller, and the equation for the output of the PID controller is like this: CPID is equal to Kp into Et, where E of t at all the time is the error between the reference signal and the output signal, means what I want and what I'm having right now. For example, if I want 26 degrees centigrade room temperature and the room temperature is, let's say, 23 degrees centigrade. So the difference between the two is the error signal here, E of t. You can see simply algebraic sum we are performing here. This is the summing junction, just like the original block diagram that you have seen in the first unit, right? So this is the equation for the PID controller. There are three components. In the proportional mode, the output of the controller, means this section, output of the controller is proportional to the error. In the integral mode, the output of the controller, means this section, is proportional to the integration of the error. And in the derivative controller, or in the derivative mode, the output is proportional to the derivative of the error, or the rate of change of the error. Okay. In some books, you can have some rephrased version of integral controller also. See, integration of error. Output is proportional to integration of error. Or can I say the rate of change of output is proportional to the error? Rate of change of output. What I'm saying, rate of change of output. Let's say Ci showing integral output. Okay. Rate of change of output d by dt of this rate of change of output is proportional to error signal. Is this correct? Yes, it is the same thing, right? Ki integral E of t dt. If we differentiate this section only, if we differentiate the integral output, we'll just get Ki into E of t, right? So in some books, you can find this terminology also. The rate of change of output is proportional to the error. This is nothing but the integral error, integral controller. Okay. And in here, the output is proportional to the rate of change of error in the derivative control. Okay. So this was the transfer function, and remember this expression as well as this expression, both of these are both these expressions are used interchangeably, right? This in this Kp, Ki, Kd, here these are called the PID constants, PID PID constants, and when you write them in this form, Kp, Ti, Td, Ti stands for integral time, Td stands for derivative time. Okay, So the unit also you can just think of it as it is integral time and derivative time. Okay, so if let's say ki is equal to 0, ki is equal to 0 and kd also is equal to 0, what will remain? Only kp will remain, right? Means the controller will become proportional controller. If kp and ki exist but kd is 0, it will become proportional integral, so that will be called as pi controller, right? So whatever component is absent will be removed, and the name of to that controller will be given based on the name to the controller will be given to the name to the controller will be given based on the components that are present in the controller, right? If only proportional is present, then it will be called proportional controller. Then you can have proportional, integral, derivative, proportional integral, proportional derivative, and proportional integral derivative. These all are possible. ID means integral derivative will not be used mostly. Generally, it doesn't find any application. Even the I and D individually will not be used very often. They are not very common. Okay, the most common ones are P, because it is the simplest one, then PI and PID. These three are the most commonly used controller configurations. Okay, PID configurations. Now we also started discussing about how to find out these constants, the parameters of the PID, KP, TITD or KP, KI, KD. The method to start with to find the starting parameters for these three is called as PID tuning, and there are two methods proposed by Ziegler-Nichols, right? Ziegler-Nichols have proposed rules for determining the values of KP, TI, and TD based on the transient response characteristics of a given plant. Okay, remember what? Based on what? Based on the transient response characteristic. So there are of course two possibilities. You may have the transfer function and you may not have the transfer function or the mathematical model of the system. So in both the cases, this system can work, right? Because transient response you can obtain from the actual plant. We will see how that is done. And if you have a model, then obviously it is much simpler to design the controller, because you can then in that case do it analytically, just on paper, mathematically. You can also perform simulation of that, right? Then it would be much simpler to perform the PID tuning. Okay, so the two methods proposed by Ziegler-Nichols are two methods for PID tuning. The most common ones are, the first method is the open loop method and second is the closed loop method. Okay, so let's see the first method of PID tuning proposed by Ziegler-Nichols. Now in the first method, what we do, we will obtain experimentally the response of the plant to a unit step input. Simple, right? Quite straightforward. You have a plant already with you. You have that plant. You simply provide step input to the plant and obtain the step response. Okay. Remember what we are doing? We are doing it on the plant. Okay. Now, if there are no integrators or dominant complex conjugate poles in the plant, if there is no integrator and if there is no dominant complex conjugate pole in the plant, then this unit response will be of this kind of shape. It will have this shape. Can you see this? This is like a S, a flattened S, you can say. Okay, so this kind of a response is called as S-shaped response or S-shaped curve. Okay, once you obtain this S-shaped curve, okay, you see there, you draw a tangent to the curve at the inflection point. Now, what is this inflection point? It is not reflection, it is not inflation, it is inflection point. Okay, there is no spelling mistake there. Okay, it is inflection point. What is that point? It is the point where you see, if you start calculating the slope of this curve, the slope starts increasing, and at certain point, after certain point, the slope will start decreasing. The inflection point is that point where the slope stops increasing and starts to decrease. Okay, means basically you have to find out the maximum slope tangent to the curve, the tangent where the slope is maximum. Okay, once you draw this slope, once you draw this tangent, you get two parameters. First parameter is the point where this tangent line intersects the time axis. The tangent line intersects the time axis, and the distance, or the, yeah, let's say distance between the origin and the intersection point, this intersection point is called as L. Okay, we are going to use this notation in the formula, that's why just bear with us, bear with me for that, for a certain time. And the time after L up to this intersection, what is this intersection point? You see, this is the point of intersection of the tangent with the maximum value of the output, right? C of t is the output, right? On y-axis we have C of t. So K is the maximum value of C of t, or you can say the steady state value of C of t. And the point here, this is the point of intersection where the tangent intersects with the steady state value line. Okay, and the time taken by the tangent is t. This is the second parameter. Both of these parameters are marked on the x-axis. Remember this, both the parameters L and T are marked on the x-axis. Okay, L as well as T. Now, remember, we must obtain S-shaped curve in this case, in this in the first method. Okay, as I already told you, you can use your simulation model to generate the step response, or you can directly get it experimentally by applying the step input to a plant. Both ways are possible. Okay, and once you obtain the values of L and T, see, L and T, these are the only two values you obtain from the curve. See here, I'm showing you again L and T. Okay, you have got these two values, L and T, from the curve. And once you obtain this curve, you simply substitute the values in this table. You simply substitute the values in this table. Now, of course, you will think that this seems to be quite a complicated thing. There is no other way around. You must remember this. You must remember this table by heart. There is no other alternative. There are no derivations also for these parameters. Why this formula? There are no derivations because, as I said in the beginning, that Ziegler-Nichols, they have done a lot of empirical tests and they have found out these numbers, these values of the parameters Kp, Ti, Td. Okay, they have found out these values of Kp, Ti, Td from a lot of experimentation. Okay, there are no derivations available for us. We have to use the formula as it is. Okay, also the values depend on the type of controller that you are using. As I said, the most commonly used controllers are P, PI, and PID. These are the three most widely used or most commonly used controllers or controller configurations. And for these three, these parameters are given. Okay. As you can see, when there is only P controller, what does it mean? That it means that proportional component is present, means Kp is present, whereas integral and derivative components are absent. If you can look back at the formula, see here, if you look back at this formula, Kp is present, Kp has to be some value, okay, but Ti, if see Ti is equal to infinity, if you substitute Ti equal to infinity, what will happen? This term will become 0 and Td equal to 0. This term will also become 0 and only this section will remain, means only proportional controller will remain, right? So for proportional controller means only P, there has to be only Kp value, right? So that's what it is in the table also. For proportional controller, we have only Kp value. The Ti, Td are not going to contribute in the final output, means the integral as well as derivative components are absent. Okay. When there is the Pi component or Pi configuration, Kp and Ti, the proportional and integral components are present. Derivative component is again 0 in Pi configuration. Whereas in PID, all three components are present and their values are like this. Okay. In a way, you can also look at this, that the Kp is in case of PID, whether it has increased or decreased. Can you see? In case of Pi, Kp has reduced, but in case of PID, it has increased a little bit, right? So anyway, you just have to remember these, all of these actually. Okay. You have to remember all of these formulae as it is. And also remember that these values of Kp, Ti, Td are going to give us only a starting point. They are going to give us a starting point only. What does it mean? We are not going to get the final tuned version of our controller. We are not going to get final tuned version of the controller. We are going to get a starting point where we may have a good controller already, or we may have to make certain adjustments, and those fine tunings we have to do on the plant after getting these parameters from this method. Okay. Any questions related to the first method? Now you can also see that as far as the questions are concerned in the exam, as this is generally you will not generally you may be asked to explain this method, but this time it is quite difficult for to write the full method. However, the table, these values may be asked in case of MCQs. Okay. So anyway, you have to remember all these things by heart. Okay. Any question? Okay, I guess not. So let's move to the second method of Ziegler-Nichols. Okay. Now, in second method, see what is done. In the beginning itself, we first set Ti is equal to infinity and Td equal to 0. Now, what does it mean? What does it mean? What I just said, right? What I just explained for the P controller, right? For the P controller, Ti is equal to infinity and Td equal to 0. Just now I explained already, right? For P only, for proportional only, Ti is equal to infinity and Td equal to 0. So similarly, we just start with that condition in the second method. Second method is called as closed loop method, right? It is called as closed loop method also. Means we will have to include a controller inside the loop. If you just pay a little, if you just give a thought, in the first method, which was the open loop method, we don't have the controller in between. See, we simply applied the input to the plant. However, in the closed loop method, what we are going to do, we first set Ti equal to infinity and Td equal to 0. Means what? We start with what? Proportional controller only, P mode controller only, right? We are starting with P mode only. Okay, remember this. In the second method, second Ziegler-Nichols method of PID tuning, we are starting with the P mode operation. Okay, so we are using only proportional control action. Okay, now what we do in the process, see, this is what it is, right? This is the final, this is the beginning starting diagram. Here actually we are supposed to have a PID controller, right? Here is the PID controller block, as I shown you in the beginning of the lecture also. However, to begin with the second method, we are simply starting with P mode. That's why Ti is infinity, Td is 0, so Kp only remains. That's why I have shown here only Kp in the block diagram. Okay. Now using this proportional control action, Kp is increased from 0 to a critical value Kcr, just denoted by Kcr, at which the output first exhibits sustained oscillations. Now, do you remember this term, sustained oscillations? Where did we talk about this term? Do you remember? Do you remember the root locus? Do you remember the Routh-Hurwitz criterion? What happens there? We have found out the range of K for which the system is stable, and at certain value of K, the system becomes marginally stable. What does marginally stable means? When the system is marginally stable, the output is simply sinusoidal for a step input, right? So means what? The oscillation, these are nothing but the oscillations, right? And they are sustained oscillations. They are not neither decaying. Ideally, we want decaying oscillations, right? Then we say that the system is stable, but the oscillations are not decaying, means those are sustained oscillations. If you try to increase the gain even above that, what will happen? If you try to increase the gain above that, what will happen? If you remember this kind of a graph, what was this? Root locus plot, and here we had some roots like this, some sample roots like this we had. So this was one branch of the root locus, and two other branches were like this, and those were breaking out and going towards the asymptotes, right? This was something like a root locus that we have drawn, and this is actually that point. Until this point, if we start gain equal to 0, right? If we start with gain equal to 0, the Kp is equal to 0, we are actually at the OLTF poles. open loop transfer function poles equal to closed loop transfer function pole in that case, right? When we start increasing, our root locus branch also start to divert from the open loop poles, and they start going towards where open loop zeros, and at one point they will cross the imaginary axis. The point at which they cross the imaginary axis, or the point at which the root locus intersects the imaginary axis, that is the point we are now trying to find out. So how did we do that at that time of finding it on at the time of root locus? What we have done there, we used Routh array, right? We use the Routh array in that case. And similarly, we need to use Routh array here also. From Routh array, we get value of KCR, which makes the system marginally stable. And then from that value of KCR, we get the final transfer function. Then we get the final characteristic equation. And from the characteristic equation, we find out the frequency of these sustained oscillations. Frequency of these sustained oscillations means how much is this, right? How much is this time period? How much is the frequency of sustained oscillations? That's what we find out. Okay. We find out the frequency of sustained oscillations. Okay. So if in case the output does not exhibit sustained oscillations, means in case the root locus is not like this, if root locus does not cross the imaginary axis, in that case this method will not be applicable. We cannot apply this method, because for this particular method we need KP or the KCR and TCR. This, okay, we need these parameters for the second method. If it is not possible to get these two parameters, we cannot use this method. Are you getting this, what I have told you? You see why I said that everything is going to be used in the case of PID design example, right? I have told you that we must remember the block diagram. We must remember the characteristic equation, the transfer function. We must remember the stability, Routh criteria, root locus, right? Everything is coming into picture. This is the same thing. This KP, this is not in case of Bode plot also, you can look at it as the gain. When you start increasing the gain, how much gain you have to increase, that is what you get actually, the gain margin, to bring the system to the verge of instability. To bring the system at the verge of instability, the amount of gain, that is what you are calculating again here. Okay, so once you calculate this, we will get this kind of sustained oscillations, right? And the critical gain KCR is the gain at which we get the sustained oscillations, and this is the period of sustained oscillation, PCR. PCR, or sometimes it can be represented as TCR, okay? But to avoid it with a lot of T's, PCR is used, okay? Period of sustained oscillations. And once you get these two parameters, KCR and PCR, you get your values of the tuned values of the parameters using the Ziegler-Nichols method. Okay, so in case of P only controller, means proportional only controller, obviously you are going to have only KP. TI and TD are not going to contribute. TI is going to be infinity and TD is going to be 0. In case of PI, you have other set of values. KP is equal to 0.45 KCR and TI is equal to 1 by 1.2 PCR. TD is going to be 0 because in case of PI, D component is absent, so TD is going to be 0 in that case. And in case of PID, we'll have all the three components, 0.6 KCR, 0.5 PCR, and 0.125 PCR. Okay, so this again, this is another table that you must remember all the time. And most, not most, in all the exams that if you look at all earlier question papers, there is one problem, at least one problem for 8 to 10 marks for designing of PID controller using Ziegler-Nichols second method. Okay, so for that particular problem, you must use, generally you have to use the second method. It will be told to you whether to use first method or second method. If you are not sure, you should generally use the second method. Okay. Remember whatever I have told until this particular slide. Okay, we are going to need the concept from Routh-Hurwitz criteria. Okay, Routh-Hurwitz criterion we have studied in which unit? We have studied this in the third unit. So you are going to need to solve one problem using the Routh-Hurwitz criterion. Okay, so now it is a homework for you to revise the Routh-Hurwitz criterion, because in the next lecture I'm going to illustrate the PID tuning with an example. Okay, here is an example already I'm showing you. Okay, that we have to design a PID controller for this particular plant system, or the equation of the plant is given to us. Okay, transfer function of the plant is given to us, and we have to apply Ziegler-Nichols tuning rules to determine the values of parameters Kp, Ti, Td. What does it mean really? To determine the values of parameters Kp, Ti, Td. It means nothing but design the PID controller, right? Designing of PID controller means to find out the transfer function. This one, GC of S. GC of S we have to find out, means the transfer function of the controller. Now what is the transfer function of the controller? Let's go back and see here. This is the transfer function of the controller. Okay, this is the transfer function of the controller, Kp into 1 plus 1 upon Tis plus Tds. So what are the unknowns here? These three parameters, right? These are the three parameters which are unknowns. S is the variable. So Kp, Ti, Td. So to find out the values of Kp, Ti, Td means to design the controller, right? So the wordings of the question may be different. Sometimes you may be asked, design a PID controller for this given plant. Okay, like here, a plant equation would be given to you. Plant equation may be given to you, and from that equation itself, you may have to find out the values of Kp, Ti, and Td. Something is wrong with the screen sharing here, so I'm just going to restart the sharing here. Yeah. Okay, so the question wordings may be like this: to find out the values of the parameters Kp, Ti, and Td, or sometimes they may just say that design a PID controller for this particular system, right? Both these things turn out to be the same. Okay, so in tomorrow's lecture, we are going to solve this example. I'm going to illustrate how the actual designing of this controller is done. Okay. So before that, you just again go through the Routh-Hurwitz criterion, because we need to solve that. Okay. Routh-Hurwitz criterion and some other related concepts, just simple solving of some parameters. That's it. Nothing really complicated. Okay, at least just remember. So let's begin our today's lecture. Just to recap, yesterday we have seen the Ziegler-Nichols methods for PID tuning, both method 1 and method 2. First method is called the open loop method, where we apply a step input to the system or the plant and observe the output. And from the if the output is S-shaped, from that S shape, we find out two parameters L and T. And from those two parameters, we find out the parameters of the PID controller, KP, KI, KD, or KP, TI, TD. Okay. In the second method, we set in the beginning TI is equal to infinity and TD equal to 0, so that only P controller, only P mode is only P mode remains in the controller. So it becomes basically a proportional controller. And then we increase the KP, the proportionality constant, from 0 to a critical value KCR, at which the output first exhibits sustained oscillations. Sustained oscillations means what? We have seen this, that the output is just a sinusoidal output, right, for a step input. So the KP at which the output becomes like this, output becomes sinusoidal or has sustained oscillations, the gain KCR is called as critical gain of the system, right? And critical gain is used to find out the value of the period of sustained oscillations, right? These are the sustained oscillations that we obtain, and this is the period of sustained oscillations denoted as PCR, period of sustained oscillations, or critical period it is also called. Okay. And from the values of KCR and PCR, we get the values of KP, TI, and TD for the various modes of controller P, PI, and PID. Okay. Now let's see an example of the designing of a PID controller or PID tuning. Right. Basically, both the terms are the same, right? Designing a PID controller or PID tuning, both are the same thing, because in PID controller design, it is nothing but to find out the values of KP, TI, and TD, and that's what is PID. That's what PID tuning is. Okay. In the problem, we have been told that we have to apply Ziegler-Nichols tuning rule to determine the values of these parameters KP, TI, and TD. Okay. So what we have to do, as I said yesterday, I told you in the yesterday's lecture that we are going to need the concepts that we have learned until now. See, we are in the 6th unit, means we are in the last unit of the subject. So ideally, the 6th unit or the last unit is the crux of everything, crux of all the first 5 units. And this is not different, right? Here you can see that this is just taking the concepts from block diagram reduction or from the first unit. This is the open loop transfer function given of the system. This is the controller transfer function that we are going to find out, right? So many things are going to be used for solving this problem, and the most important one is the Routh-Hurwitz criterion to find out the critical gain KCR. Okay. So the transfer function of the plant, right? Remember, of the plant, we are not talking about the closed loop transfer function of the whole system. We are talking about only the transfer function of the plant is GS is equal to 1 upon s into s plus 1 into s plus 5. So what we do, we, according to second method, only proportional gain is kept, means Kp remains, right? And Ti becomes infinity in the beginning and Td becomes 0. Okay, Td is the derivative constant, Ti is the integral time. These two are set in such a way that the integral and derivative component becomes 0 and only proportional component remains in the controller. So means there is only Kp. Okay. Now, according to the second method, this proportional gain Kp is varied till sustained oscillations are produced. Right? Means Kc is referred to as that value of the K for which sustained oscillations are produced in the system is called the critical value of the gain, or KCR. Okay. So if there is only KCR in the system, how will be the transfer function? How will the transfer function become of the plant? See, this is the diagram that will become Ti equal to infinity, Td equal to 0. So the controller will have only Kp. And from this diagram, we can see that what remains. Now, what is this? You see, what is this? This is the closed loop transfer function. Remember this, right? This is the closed loop transfer function of the system. And how we obtain it? Which formula do we use? Gs upon 1 plus GSHS. Right? This is the formula that we use here. Now, what is GS? GS in this case is nothing but the multiplication of these two. So if I don't write it here, I can write it directly here also, right? That is what I will get anyway, because these are two blocks in series. So that's what the resultant block is. And this is H of S. H of S is equal to what here? H of S in this particular case is 1. Right? And now if you apply this formula here, the resultant output or the resultant transfer function of the closed loop system will be Kp upon S into S plus 1, S plus 5 plus Kp. You can check by yourself, you can verify yourself. Okay. So now once you get the closed loop transfer function of the system, why do we need basically the closed loop transfer function? We are not really interested in the closed loop transfer function. We need the characteristic equation of the system, because for Routh-Hurwitz stability criterion, we need the characteristic equation of the system. So that is obtained by expanding simply the denominator. See, S into S plus 1, S plus 5. So what it is? S into, if I multiply these two, S square plus 6S plus 5, right? And then finally it would, and of course plus Kp. And finally it would become what? S cube plus 6S square plus 5S plus Kp, right? I have just expanded the brackets. So S cube plus 6S squared plus 5S plus Kp is equal to 0 is the now characteristic equation of the system. Okay, this is the characteristic equation of the system. And from this equation, we will find out the value of Kp, which will make the system marginally stable. And for that, we are going to use the Routh array. Okay, so here it is 1, 6, 5 Kp. So just I'm writing 1, 6, 5 Kp. We have taken those coefficients here for S cube S squared. And now for S raised to 1, what we get? Multiplication of this minus multiplication of this divided by this. So 30 minus Kp divided by 6. How is this? How does it come? If you can recall, it is the determinant, right? Determinant of the above two rows minus of that divided by 6, right? So this is what this element is. Okay, so if we solve this, we get t minus kp upon 6, and here we get kp. So when will the system become marginally stable? You remember that, right? When will the system become marginally stable? The system will become marginally stable when this particular value is 0, right? Why so? Because at certain range of values, see here, this is positive, this is positive, this has to be positive for the system to be stable, right? Because in the Raoult table, there should not be any sign change if the system has to be stable, correct? For the system to be stable, there should not be any sign change. Means what? Kp should be greater than 0 for stable system, and 30 minus kp upon 6 should also be greater than 0 for stable system, right? For a stable system, both of these conditions must be satisfied. Means what? Kp has to be less than 30. This is, if you just rearrange, what will happen? 30 minus kp greater than 0, or 30 is greater than kp. Means what? For stability, okay, I'm talking about 0 less than kp less than 30, right? This is for stable system. But are we looking to find out stability? We don't want stability. What we want? We want the gain so that system becomes marginally stable. Now, when will the system become marginally stable? See here, when the gain is 30, what will happen? When kp is 30, this term will become 0, right? This term here will become 0. Means what? We are going to get the term line of 0 in the Raoult table. Means the system will become marginally stable. When kp is greater than 30, this term will become negative and system will be unstable, right? You got the idea? This is what we have seen in our third unit. Remember, this is not new. This is not something new that we have seen. We have already seen this in our third unit. Okay. So for 0 to 30, system is stable. For gain above 30 or below 0 also, the system is unstable. And for gain equal to 30, the system is marginally stable, right? And that is what we got from this particular equation. So in order to get in this particular example, or in the particularly PID tuning example, we are not interested in the range of gain for which system is stable. We want simply the marginally marginally stable system and the gain at that particular point. And that will be simply done by just equating this term 30 minus kp divided by 6. You simply equate this term to 0. And whatever the answer of kp you get, that is your answer for KCR. Okay. And in that way, you obtain KCR is equal to 30. Everyone clear about this? Anyone has any questions? You please ask. Any questions? See, this is how we have applied the Routh-Hurwitz criterion for design of a controller. Okay. So I will just remove the markings so that other things are clear. Okay. So from the Routh-Hurwitz criterion, we find out that the critical value of the gain KCR is equal to 30. But this is not the end of our problem. We need KCR as well as PCR. What is PCR? PCR is the, what is PCR? PCR is the period of sustained oscillations. When gain is equal to 30, means in this equation you can substitute 30. So you will get the you will actually get the transfer function, the characteristic equation of the system. Okay, and because of the gain equal to 30, we are going to get sustained oscillations in the system, and the period of that sustained oscillations we have to now find out. And to do that, what we have to do is substitute the value of KCR in the equation. So this is what I have done here again. S cube plus 6s square plus 5s plus 30 equal to 0. Okay, so this is now the characteristic equation, and substitute S equal to j omega. Now what we are doing this is because we want to find out the frequency of sustained oscillations. Frequency is denoted by omega, and at sustained oscillations, remember at sustained oscillations, where are the poles? At sustained oscillations, the poles are on the imaginary axis, means real part equal to 0, means S equal to only j omega. That's why we have substituted S equal to j omega in the equation. So the equation is now j omega cube plus 6 j omega squared plus 5 j omega plus 30 equal to 0. Now simplifying that, we get this particular equation. Do you all agree with this? Is it correct? I have skipped a couple of terms here. Okay. J omega cube. The value of j omega cube is what? It is minus j omega cube. Am I right? Is this correct? Similarly, j omega squared is nothing but minus omega square. So this becomes minus 6 omega square, and that term is here minus 6 omega square, and this term, first term, is minus j omega cube. These are here. Then 5 j omega is as it is, and 30 is as it is, right? Okay, so further simplification will give us this will give us this kind of this solution. Okay, and finally we get omega is equal to square root of 5 radian per second. Now 5 radian per second, what is this? This is the value of omega. This is the value of frequency. Okay, this is the value of frequency. Remember what we want period of oscillations. So period is equal to, is this right? 2 pi upon omega. 2 pi upon omega. How I'm going to get this? How do we get this? Omega is equal to 2 pi f. Is it right? Means 2 pi upon t. Here t, it is nothing but t is equal to period, PCR. Right? So omega is equal to 2 pi by t or 2 pi by PCR. So PCR is equal to 2 pi upon omega. Okay. So PC या स्लाइड वरच होतो का आपण?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Okay, so the PCR is nothing but the period of critical oscillations or period of sustained oscillations, and that is equal to 2 pi by omega. And since omega is equal to what we have calculated is square root of 5 radians per second, now we got PCR is equal to 2 pi upon square root of 5 and is equal to 2.8099 seconds. Okay, so this is what PCR we have obtained now. We have got PCR and we have also got KCR is equal to 30, right? We have got KCR is equal to 30. Now using our table, which table? Table for the second method, because we are applying the second method of PID tuning. So applying the second method using those formula directly, Kp, Ti and Td are calculated using those formulae, and that is what we get. Kp is equal to 18, Ti is equal to 1.405 and Td is equal to 0.35124. Okay, now we got the three constants, right? Kp, Ti, Td. These are the parameters of Kp, Ti, Td are the parameters of the PID controller, PID transfer function. See, this is the equation that I have given you earlier. Kp, Ti and Td. These are the three parameters of our transfer function. So substituting these values in the equation, we get GC of S. GC of S is nothing but the transfer function of the PID controller of that block only. Okay, transfer function of that PID controller block only. GC of S is equal to 18 into 1 plus 1 over 1.405 S plus 0.35124 S. Right? So this is how we have obtained the transfer function of the PID controller. Transfer function of the PID controller block. Right? And this is what is designing of PID controller, or also called as tuning of the PID controller. Both things are the same. And in any case, whenever we say design of a circuit or design of a system, what does it mean? It means to find out the parameters of the circuit. For example, okay, just take an example that I want to design a full wave rectifier, full wave bridge rectifier. So we already know how the full wave bridge rectifier circuit is, right? We already know that there are going to be two diodes in like this and then like this. There will be basically four diodes, and then afterwards there has to be one capacitor, right? We know these things. The basic circuit we already know. So does it mean we are doing something new? The thing is, we have to find out the values of these parameters, values of the circuit parameters, circuit elements. That is what is called circuit design. In control system case, sometimes you already know the equation. This is the equation of the controller, because we are using PID controller. PID is a well-known technique. It is quite popular technique. So everyone knows the equation of the PID controller. What they don't know is the values of these parameters for your particular task. Whatever task you are performing, whatever the plant you are using, for that particular plant, what are the values of KPTITD that would be best suited as per your requirement, as per your requirement for how they will be suited. Now, when I said as per your requirement, what does it mean? Again, let me explain a little bit more. Let me emphasize this a little bit more. Okay. See here, I'm okay. By the way, this is what the problem is. The problem has complete. We have completed the problem. Anyone has any questions regarding this? How we came to the solution? If you have any questions, you can ask. Otherwise, I'm going to put some more light and give some more insights onto the design aspect of the controller. Okay, I guess no one is asking any questions. So let me go back a little bit here. Okay, what is this? This is the characteristic equation of the system, right? Now, during the design phase or during the problem definition phase, basically not really designing phase, but the problem definition phase itself, we have to discuss. We may be given certain system specifications at the time of designing the system. Now, what do I mean by system specifications? You have studied two types of specifications, right? Time domain specifications, time domain specifications. You recall this? And frequency domain specifications. The most importantly being the zeta, omega n. Omega n is not really, omega n and zeta are not really time domain specifications, right? These are system parameters. However, the time domain specifications are like TD, TR, TS, TP, MP. Do you remember these names? Omega R, BW. You remember these names, right? TD, delay time, rise times, settling time, peak maximum overshoot, resonant frequency, bandwidth. These are the system parameters. These are the system domain, system specifications in time domain as well as frequency domain. And these are the specifications of the system response. They indicate how the system response should be. What is expected from the system response? That is what they indicate us, right? So their values, if you can recall, their formulae are dependent on these two parameters, zeta and omega n. If you can recall, their formulae involve zeta and omega n, right? And zeta and omega n will change according to this k. Zeta and omega n will change according to k. Now, it is not really very intuitive to see it in the higher order case. Now, this is third order system, right? So it is not really easy to gauge the direct dependence clearly. However, from the second order system analogy, you can relate that based on the value of the constant parameter, right? Based on the value of constant parameter, the value of omega n and zeta are going to change. So basically, what we may be given is, we may be given the time domain specifications, and from that you can get the values of various parameters of the system that during the design phase. Okay, we may have to control the these things. Basically, what we are controlling means what? We are applying a controller. What does it mean? Does it just mean that there should be set point? Means does it really mean that if I give a set point here, my system should go and attain the set point? No, not really. It is not the only thing that is expected. The way it achieves the set point is also important. Some systems may achieve the set point like this. Some systems may achieve the set point like this. Some systems may achieve the set point like this, right? We have seen these things. This is nothing but these are the things dependent on zeta, how the system is going to achieve the set point. Set point means what? The desired change. Whatever the desired change I am inputting to the system, how the system achieves that, that is dependent on the parameter zeta.